Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde. There's a question I want to begin with today, and it is something found in A Paradise for Maggots, a book written by Wale Adebanwe, which is the story of a Nigerian anti-graft czar. It's actually about Mr. Nuhu Ribadu while he was chair of the EFCC. Now, this question: will the cesspools of corruption in Nigeria be forever drained? And will this great nation discover the path to democratic prosperity? It's a question that we have been asking ourselves and trying to deal with for years. This latest case in point is interesting, and the world is watching. So are Nigerians. Where will this end? But let's begin with this.
It has become the trend that most of our crime fighters have, in one way or another, always ended up in the negativity. It is so sad. But it is not right, too, for us to jump at conclusion that he's guilty because he has not been tried under Nigerian laws yet. And I think we have so many hurdles we need to cross before we conclude that DCP Abakari is actually guilty. Yes, we've heard the allegation that the U.S. court has indicted him. We probably heard that he was not indicted where he's being asked, an arrest warrant was issued. And but not yet from a Nigerian court or our judicial system. We need to subject that and to the indictment to our own system, and to be sure that yes, he is actually guilty of those offenses. And if he's found guilty, it's very unfortunate. And I also trust that he will liaise with the Attorney General of the Federation while doing this, to get the substance, to arrive at the legal substances of these accusations, and to establish the culpability of the officer in charge or concerned. And I'm also sure that by the time he gets these facts right, he's going to refer the matter to the Police Service Commission, that whose authority it is to punish. And for now, the IGP has reacted properly, and I think we are satisfied with the decision has taken and what he's doing. Punishments for crimes vary when the police officer commits infractions on the service code. So warning, then a reprimand, severe reprimand, reduction in rank, and outright dismissal. These are the penalties that we can impose on any serving officer from the rank of Deputy Inspector General of Police to a constable in the police.
The gentleman that you just listened to is Austin Brymer. He is Commissioner in charge of media for Nigeria's Police Service Commission. And he began by saying, it is a sad developing trend that our police officers, brave, gallant police officers, always end up in negativity. And he would know, because the Police Service Commission is the one in charge of dealing with everything concerning the conduct of police officers. Maybe not their operations, excuse me, just their conduct as police officers. And it only raised one question on my mind. It is a trend. Well, the Super Cop has not been indicted. Well, he's been indicted by a foreign nation, not Nigeria. Well, it's just an example of so many things that we find ourselves doing, or we just hear in the news. A number of us would remember that some high-profile leaders in Nigeria have not been indicted by Nigerian authorities. I'll just cite one. Former Governor of Delta State, James Ibori, is a case in point. All our courts, all of our criminal, justice system found him innocent. And it only took a foreign court to indict and jail a former governor in Nigeria. The young man, also popularly known as Hush Puppy, was not indicted in Nigeria. He had to be caught abroad. It's not to say that all those offenses weren't being conducted or being committed in Nigeria. perhaps this that we have just heard about a police officer, DSP Abba Kyari, being involved probably lays credence to why it was difficult or impossible to have held DCP Abba Kyari while Hush Puppy wasn't caught or indicted in Nigeria. It had to happen abroad. And this is saying so many things in so many ways and opening a lot of vista of opportunities for the Police Service Commission or the security apparatus of our country to do the needful as far as ensuring that our officers are on the straight and narrow. That is one. The second thing is the allure of money. How many times have Nigerians shouted, including the NSAS, saying that police officers aren't being paid well enough? You can imagine how much money a criminal would have to get anyone to do whatever it is that he wants them to do, to conflict their interests and all of that. There's so many questions in this case, and a number of people are wondering how it will end. Is this going to be handled professionally or sentimentally? The question is begging for answers. In the meantime, there are so many issues in the paper. Hopefully this one is one of them. We'll be back. All right, that's time for us to take a look at today's papers. We begin with the Nigerian Tribune, and it's, of course, talking about the Abba Kyari case. That's it on the front page. Four-man panel begins probe as Police Commission suspends Kyari. The story is on page 2. A couple of writers. Due process must be followed, says Falana. Police on trial, lawyers say. I mean, that one would wonder how far that will go. By the way, if you're wondering what the details of this story is, go to channelstv.com. You'll read the full story of how far so far, including the indictment of the indictment case, from the U.S. court. Right there on our website, channelstv.com. We'll give it to you. So that's the lead of the paper this morning. And right under the picture you see there, COVID-19, Lagos records 6 deaths, 519 infections in 2 days. The story is on page 25. 519 infections in 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, it is definitely something that should be concerning. We should give all of the attention we need to this particular issue as it unfolds. Nursing mother, 24 other co-members test positive in Gombe. And is this cheering news? Nigeria to receive 4.8 million doses of vaccines today. Find the details on page 25 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Reps seek to prohibit president, vice president, governors, deputy from defecting. And so we say that'll be the day. But then find the story on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Well, that's the Nigerian Tribune today. Take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. And what do you have? It is politics. That's it. World Congresses, cracks in APC widen stakeholders in fight to finish in states. It's crisis rock party in Delta, Akwa Ibom, Ekiti, Kano, Osun, Kwara, Lagos. The story is on page 5. Remember, there was that thought in some about the Supreme Court's judgment that gave that split decision on the affirmation of the election of Governor Akeredolu of Ondo State, and people are looking for connections. Are there any or not? I guess we'll find out in the coming days, but then you may want to read this paper to find out the details. It's on page 5 of the paper, and right under the picture you see there, Twitter ban. We're monitoring closely beg your pardon, we are monitoring closely repression in Nigeria, says Commonwealth. Well, this is the Commonwealth's response to a letter, from Serap to them asking the Commonwealth to look into the cases of repression or accusation of repression against the Nigerian government, as a result of the suspension of Twitter activities in Nigeria. And the Commonwealth has responded, and that's what you will find on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Made in Nigeria foods. NAFDAC raises alarm over rejection by US EU. What exactly does that mean? You'll find the story on page 8. What's the rejection about? The details you'll find on the inside pages. Right above the nameplate, FBI indictment. PSC suspends DCP Abba Kyari. The details you find on page 9 of the paper this morning. And monthly tenancy. Estate surveyors, Fashola, disagree. Over what? Page 9 of the paper will give you details. And Vanguard Sports is on the back. Another Olympic blow. Adegoke crashes out of a 100-meter final. Oh dear. The details you'll find on the inside pages actually begins from the front page. Tokyo 2020 Olympics, why Nigeria is yet to win medals. That's ascribed to Minister of Sports. I would want to know what the take of government is on that, but you'll find the details on the inside pages of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. The Daily Trust newspaper is next, and it has an exclusive on Ali Kachala unveiling the Zamfara terror kingpin who downed NAF jet. Is that something that should give us concern? You'll find the details on page 5 of the paper this morning. And right under the picture, Hush Puppy, please begin probe, suspend Kyari. The story is on page 4 of the paper this morning. And right under that one, FG refunds 620 billion naira to states for federal roads in 6 years. Exactly how much did your state get? You'll find it on page 4, and you should actually be interested in how that goes. The Daily Trust, right under the nameplate, also has APC to expel bigwigs over parallel congresses in Kwara, Kano, Lagos, others. The story is on page 48. Students worry as FG meets ASU over fresh strike threats. Oh, I hear someone saying, again? Well, the answer is on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. You may want to take a look at that. Well, still on whether strike or no strike. Again, resident doctors begin nationwide strike today. That's on the front page of Daily Times newspaper this morning. And Lagos government urges NARD to shelve strike. The Daily Times newspaper is saying that, and one is wondering, okay, how far so far? Should we even still be talking about this? But that's what you have on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper. Let's switch to the Nigerian News Direct then, since we just don't seem to be having the Daily Times come up. That's it. Nigerian News Direct has this one. Indictment. FG should hand over Abba Kyari to FBI. That's according to the PDP. I don't know if lawyers are on the same page about that one, but that's what you have right there on the front page of the paper this morning. Stories on page 31. IG orders suspension, sets up 4-man special investigation panel. AGF possesses exclusive rights to oblige extradition request. That's right there on the front page of the paper. That NAFDAC story is there again. NAFDAC DG decries rejection of made in Nigeria food products by EU, US. The question is why? Find the story on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Good morning, Markwe.
Good morning, Ayo. Quite a lot to get down our minds this morning. But if we quickly look at the Abuja Inquirer for you see right there, FCT 2022, PDP, APC candidates in certificate forgery allegations. That's what you find on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer. That's what they're leading with. Some politics this morning, and it will look like no major party is exempt from this certificate forgery allegations. You also see there PMS NNPC rakes in 234.63 billion naira in March. Okay, so if they're raking in that much, the question is what is being paid in terms of subsidies. Even though they say the subsidy regime is over, but not quite over. You might want to know just how much the NNPC has had to augment what it is that has been raked in. Page 3 might give you details. You have a number of other stories just beneath the nameplate. They're still following the cholera story for you. Cholera, Buari, Amak, hotspots in FCT. It's still an ongoing issue. JAM, 18,000 candidates slated for mop-up UTME on Friday. And this one is here. Contractors paid 8 billion naira annually to clean Abuja. If ever you've wondered, sometimes people come into the city and maybe one of the first things that strikes them is just how maybe clean the city is, at least in certain parts. In case you're wondering just how much it costs to keep it like this, I want to imagine it also includes cutting of grass and all manner of things, but 8 billion naira is the price tag on that one. COVID-19 deaths increased by 80% in Africa, driven by Delta variant. That's according to the World Health Organization. They also have that story for you. Let's leave it here for the Abuja Inquirer. And if I could quickly run through the leadership newspapers for you, you see there, uncertainty over fate of PIB, Electoral Act Amendment Bill. That is the leadership for you. That's what they're trailing. Don't forget that National Assembly is on recess, but certain committees will be meeting to harmonize the PIB and also the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. NAS yet to transmit bills to President. That's what the leadership is saying. We're cleaning up bills, say lawmakers. CSOs insist on non-assent to electoral bill. Yes, I don't know, but that's what the CSOs are saying. Ijaw leaders ask Jonathan to intervene over 3% for host communities. So those are some of the contentious issues trailing both the PIB and the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. A number of other stories around. They also have this Hush Puppy story. Hush Puppy, police suspend Abba Kyari, begin probe. Northern youths fault U.S. court. That's on the front page. Only quick intervention will save aviation sector. That's according to stakeholders. Say sector lost $994 million to COVID-19 in 2020. A number of other stories on the side. Two of them I find really disturbing. This one, resident doctors begin strike today. It's no news, but it's there nonetheless, and it should worry us. And 4 abducted Islamia pupils feared dead. Yeah, this one is a really sad development if true. It's a page 10 read for you. On the front page of Leadership, they have stayed consistently on that story. Let's leave it there. Well, they also have special reporting on the back page on Tokyo 2020. So just in case you want to know how we're faring, looks like yesterday was a good day for a number of our athletes. But we'll have to leave it there for Leadership newspapers.
Blueprint newspaper is, as we say, staying on the Hush Puppy FBI indictment story. Anxiety as PSC suspends Kyari, DIG heads probe panel. The story is on page 6. Mieti Allah tackles northern elders over silence. Well, I'm just wondering, what should they be saying? Accuses FBI of conniving with southern leaders. Okay. Nothing should happen to Kyari. Arewa youth warn. Well, the story is on page 6. I don't even know what to make of that, but that's what you have on the front page right there. And that picture you see, I don't know what you would make of it, but it's of the DG of the NYSC inspecting food preparation during his visit to the 2021 Batch B Stream 1 core members in Plateau State. That's what you have right there. And right under the picture, APC Congresses peaceful across states adopts consensus. Find the story on pages 8, 9, and 21 of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. Right under the nameplate, rather unfortunate one there. 11 killed in Plateau crisis, 50 houses razed, scores hospitalized, crops, economic trees destroyed. It's another attack in Plateau State, and it's definitely troubling. That's what you have on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper, among several other stories this morning. Marco.
Well, let's look at New Telegraph for you. Hush puppy. PSC OK's IGP's recommendation suspends Kyari. That's what they have on the front page. U.S. court, Abbas to be sentenced in October. Kyari's brother deletes photos of luxury cars, others on Instagram. Instagram has been getting people into trouble, it will seem. Pages 3 and 6 is where you'll find details. 46% of 65 private jet owners owe custom duties. That's a huge figure. That's what New Telegraph is reporting. I'm hoping that it will pop up for you. 46% of 65 private jet owners owe custom duties. You can do the maths and find out how many of them are owing custom duties, why they should owe custom duties, why their jets haven't been impounded. Because if you do owe custom duties on your vehicle and customs catches you driving it on the road, you know what happens. So why will private jet owners be exempt from this same rule that applies to people who don't pay custom duties on their cars or anything else that they own? IGR, NAS to halt aviation agencies 25% remittance to government. That's also there. Federal government moves to avert fresh strikes in varsities. Meet ASU today. Refunds 143 billion naira spent by 5 states on federal roads. A number of other stories for you there, but you might want to read this story. Governor's refusal to sign death warrant unconstitutional. That's according to lawyers, senior lawyers, not just any type of lawyers. I think it's an issue that we should really debate if we want to have the death penalty in our laws and if we're going to sign it. I mean, if governors will sign it when these sentences are finally handed down, it's something definitely worth a conversation. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph. Ayo.
Well, that's the papers this morning. So many other issues begging for your attention. Grab a daily to know which one you would want to stay on. In the meantime, we'll take a short break and begin with the first issue for the day after now. Please stay with us.
Embarking on a total and indefinite strike on the 2nd of August 2021 based on the following reasons. Over 10 centers under the Gifters platform still have payment of, they have not been paid salaries for 3 to 6 months. We had issues with them being non-regular payment, and as part of the memorandum of action, it was said that they should be captured back into the IP's platform. You are aware that we lost 19 members to COVID-19, and death in service insurance was supposed to be paid to their next of kin. As the last time we met with the Minister of Labour and Minister of Health, we were told that our members are part of those to be given the insurance benefits. On a second recall and checking back, we found out that their names are not even there. Apart from one, no other one is there. You will recall that we said we had problems with the hazard allowance and they had to make improvement on it. We have had a series of meetings over 6 times, and up till now, nothing has been done about it.
Well, that's the matter which we're going to be putting a searchlight on this morning. And we're joined by Dr. Akanimo Ebong, who is the President, Association of Resident Doctors at the National Hospital, that's National Hospital Abuja chapter. And he's also a Senior Registrar, Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at the National Hospital. Doc, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you.
It's a really troubling piece of news that resident doctors are about to go on strike. I know that we just heard the President National of the Association of Resident Doctors, but could you shed a little more light? Because I want to imagine that when this particular notice to go on strike was issued, there should have been a reach out on the part of those who will be affected, or not those who will be affected now, but those whose duty it is to ensure that you do not go on strike, to have called by now to say, can we have a conversation? Has that happened yet?
Okay, before I answer directly, I just want to take us down memory lane. These issues, if you remember in January, we had a meeting, and our January NEC, National Executive Council meeting, on the 25th to 30th of January, after which we released the communique and we made some demands to the government. The President, as you saw earlier, has spoken about a few of them, from death in service benefits to the hazard allowance from COVID-19, to moving our members on the GiveMe platform to the IP's platform, and a lot more. And this was done in January, and we gave 2 months for government to discuss with us about these issues. We had another meeting on the 6th.
They did in that period, didn't they?
Well, there was no serious negotiation on these issues. We had another emergency meeting on the 6th of March, and released the communique on the 7th, sent a letter to the minister on the 7th also. And we gave another 1 month to see if things would change, if negotiations would happen. On the 28th of March, on the 27th of March actually, we had another meeting, and on the 28th, we now decided that we are going on strike after having given up to 3 months of notice. It's only then that serious negotiations started. And on the 31st, if you remember, the memorandum of action was signed. And of all the items of the memorandum of action that were signed since March, as of today, only 2 have been partially done, which is payment of house officers. Some are still being owed. Some of their monies, which were deducted for their accommodation, has not been paid to everybody. And a few, in some centers, are still being owed a few months' salaries. And the second thing, which is bench fees, which should have been abolished. A few centers have changed the name to training fees. But movement of our members from the GiveMe platform to the IPs, the hazard allowance, the medical residency training allowance, none of that has seen the light of day. And this is since January when we made these demands. So when you say, has government started negotiating with us, then usually there's no negotiation done until we go on a strike. We have resumed our strike today. We never called it off. We only suspended it to give time for negotiations. But since we called off the strike on the 10th of April, we started it on the 1st of April, called it off on the 10th. Since then...
Suspended, you mean? Because you just used the word suspended.
Since we suspended it on the 10th of April, barely nothing has been done. So when we are back at this, we've given enough time, we've tried to negotiate, we've tried to do things to make the system work, but unfortunately, we are here again.
April, I mean, we're in August. Today is the 2nd of August. We do know that you've had certain champions. I mean, at the political level, there have been champions who have been quite concerned about the plight of doctors and, think that it is not right that, they'll have to go on strike first before their issues are taken into consideration. I do recall that the Speaker of the House of Representatives intervened in the matter on a number of occasions. What did that yield?
Yes, we're grateful to the Speaker, the Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila. We have been able to get the Residency Training Act put budget to be budgeted for. It has been put in the budget, but still it hasn't been paid. This is since January, since March, since April, May, June, and we're in August now. The year is about to end, and we still think that more should be done. We still think more could have been done. And what we want is to see results. We don't want promises. Every time we threaten a strike, negotiations start, then we are promised, we call off or we suspend our strike, and then we are back to zero again.
Have there been any, serious questions? I mean, while you're at the negotiating table, have you ever asked, is there a problem? Is it that government is broke? Is it that they're not able to meet their obligations to doctors? What exactly has been the excuse of government, at least from when you listen to the government side?
Well, I can't speak for government. But from the negotiations, we usually get promises. We don't get, it's not possible. We can do this from the memorandum of action. You could see that it was not of understanding, it was of action. This is what we will do. So those are not promises of us being broke, we can't pay. Those are promises of things we will do. So when you have a memorandum of action, I don't know what other excuse you can give to that.
Yeah, because the people who say that at a strike, when doctors eventually decide, or whatever striking group decides to go on strike, that what it means is that you've held a gun to the people, to the other side's head, and that oftentimes it's like they're under some form of duress, and so will promise anything just to get you back from strike or to ensure you do not go on strike. Do you get that feeling when you're at the negotiating table?
No, we don't get that feeling. We give enough room and enough time to negotiate. When you are on a negotiation table or you call for negotiations and mostly you are ignored, you try to see people in their offices, you can't get to see them, and it's only when you call a strike that you see them, then you know that the other party is not even willing most times to negotiate. So I think the gun is more to our heads. We have no other option than to call a strike. When you've tried, you've negotiated, you've tried to negotiate, and sometimes you can't even reach the people you're trying to negotiate with. It's more or less the gun being to our heads.
Well, we know what impact this has on the medical sector. Right now, we've been told that COVID-19 is, I don't want to say back, it never left, but that there is a variant that is around that is quite aggressive. We've seen how it attacked some countries mercilessly, and the fears that, we need to be on our guards at this time. We're wondering what this will mean for our medical system when we know that resident doctors form the bulk of workers in our medical sector. Have you thought about the implications of this on the Nigerian medical health sector?
Yes. Sadly, it may impact us. As a Nigerian, it's very easy to say it's not our portion. But what have we put in place? The onus doesn't lie only on the workers, the doctors, to sort this problem out. Government also has to play its own part. Since the last wave of the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria here, what has happened to our isolation centers? What has happened to our healthcare system? Have we improved on it? Is it only manpower? You don't take soldiers to the battle without weapons, without equipment. You can't take soldiers to fight a war with sticks. What has government done since the last pandemic the last outbreak, what has happened to our isolation centers? Are they still running?
You are at the National Hospital.
Yes, I am.
What is your experience at the National Hospital?
My experience is that it's the same for everywhere in Nigeria. Nigeria is not prepared. If there's an outbreak now, we don't have enough isolation spaces in the FCT to cater for it. If we don't have enough isolation spaces all over Nigeria, we do not have it. We don't have the equipment. Do we have enough ventilators as of the last time till now? Have we imported as many as we needed? We don't.
But the figures have increased, at least at the National Hospital.
Yes, they have increased. They have improved, but by how much? These improvements were done at an emergency time. But since then, what is the plan for the next 5 years, if I should say, short-term period? Do we have more? Have we made funds available to improve our healthcare system so that should in case we have this same problem, will we be better prepared?
So in your own estimation, it would seem that no lessons have been learned.
Exactly. Sadly, but that's the truth.
So if this is where we currently are, what are the chances that anything is going to happen, now that you're calling a strike? Because one would imagine, the first question I asked you was that when you gave an ultimatum again, saying you're going to start a strike, resume your strike action today, there ought to have been some movement, at least maybe a few phone calls here and there, and some attempts to call you to a negotiating table to maybe show you what it is that has happened so far behind the scenes on the memorandum of action which you're yet to see or which is yet to materialize. Have there been any conversations on that?
Yes, there have been, but they still haven't gotten to any logical conclusions. We have not been paid our MRTF, our medical residency training allowances. We have not hazard allowance since the last corona outbreak is still 5,000 per health worker all over the country, which cannot treat, should I say, the most basic of ailments in the hospital from the cost of living now. Our residents on Give Me's platform who are receiving percentages of their salaries, these are doctors who work every month, are still not earning complete salaries. Our doctors in state tertiary hospitals, some of them are being owed up to 19 months of salary arrears. How can a doctor work for almost 2 years and not be paid? We're still at our stage 0. We haven't improved. So when you say the negotiation there are some basic things that should have been done. And if you see them being done, even though if you can achieve some halfway, then you can say, okay, let's keep trying. The government is doing its part, we will do our part. But when you see that the other end is breaching an agreement, you have no other options.
Let me take this to my colleague, Ayo, in Lagos. Ayo.
Yeah, thank you, Mawokwe. Dr. Ebong, the first thing that came to my mind as your conversation with Mawokwe began was to ask. I like to decrypt issues. So when we talk about government, it's natural for us to think is the Federal Ministry of Health. I'm just wondering what the responsibility or role of the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, MDCN, is in all of this conversation that we are having. Because I remember before the strike was suspended initially, there were also talks around the role of MDCN at the time. What's the latest on that? Has the needle moved a little?
Well, on the role of MDCN is a regulatory body. They deal with our licenses, licensing of doctors, and the issues we have with them currently is mainly with our house officers. The recruitment, some centers still don't have house officers recruited. The salaries being paid, as I said earlier, some house officers are being owed 1 to 2 months of salaries, and then the refunds of their accommodation that was taken from their salaries, not everyone has received it. So we still have issues with the MDCN and also issues of remittance of their dues with MDCN. So MDCN is not supposed to pay us resident doctors' salaries, but the issues we have with them mainly borders around our house officers.
Right. Well, there's another one, that is also making the rounds. There's a directive from the federal government which has already been executed in Lagos. Could you, talk to us about that one? And is that the main reason for this resumption of strike?
It is also part of our reasons for the resumption of this strike. I think on the 12th of April, there was a circular from the head of service removing house officers from the scheme of service, albeit saying they are not doctors, they are still in training. But we know that they have gone to school, they have graduated, they have gotten their medical degrees from their various universities, and they are just doing their internship. So they have a provisional license already, and they're doing their internship to get their permanent licenses. But they have been removed from the scheme of service, and Lagos is about to implement it, and that is part of the fight we are trying to, the issues we are trying to resolve at the moment. Why remove doctors from the scheme of service? These are doctors; they are fully fledged doctors. They are only undergoing an internship program so that we can send them out to the world. Different places have their rules and regulations on internship, but these are doctors. They have graduated. They have certificates and they are doctors. You can't say you remove them from the scheme of service just because they are doing an internship. So we are frowning at that, and we hope that that decision will be rescinded. I think the Nigerian Medical Association also is on discussions with that also, but we are also demanding that that circular be reversed.
Well, some who don't understand what you're talking about will be wondering what's the difference between, scheme of service and whatever it is that's that they have been asked to do. Exactly what is the issue here? Does that mean that they are not allowed to work in the hospitals at all, or what exactly is the issue?
The issue is that they would no longer be placed on a salary scale. They will be given allowances, and if it is going to be counted for them that they have started their service in the ministry, that period will not be counted for them.
All right. Well, that definitely is something worrying. I'm pretty sure that you guys are on top. But you also mentioned the NMA the other time, in one of your comments just recently. Exactly what's the role or take of the NMA on this issue? Because I would expect that, there would have been conversations among industry stakeholders like the NMA, the MD-CAN, and the rest of that. So at least try to get ahead of the strike before it begins.
Yes, NMA is our, should I say, parent body. It's the body for all doctors in Nigeria. And I can't speak for the executive of NMA, but I know that NMA also frowns at this circular. NMA has also tried to negotiate and put their own statements down as regarding the circular. And I know that NMA is also with us on this issue, and they are against that circular removing house officers from the scheme of service. I can't speak for them. I can only speak for NAD at this moment.
Well, there's this question. Malpe asked you this recently about, have you considered, the fate of the people that you took the oath to help? Adamu Sumaila is asking, what do you think would be the fate of inpatients at the hospital, considering the present economic predicament of the country vis-a-vis insecurity and other related problems? Don't you guys look at, the angle before embarking on strike? Markwe asked you this earlier, and here is someone asking exactly the same question.
This is a very honest question, and I'm going to answer it honestly. Almost every one of us took oaths. The government took an oath. And one of the main responsibilities of government is the welfare of its citizens, including doctors, including patients. It's difficult, to put it only on us. The government also bears the same responsibility. They bear the responsibility to make sure that the patients are also taken care of. They bear the responsibility to make sure that the health system works so that doctors don't go on strike. I think the real responsibility and the people whose conscience at this time should be pricking them at the government. Government should bear this responsibility. We have tried since January, February, March, up to August to negotiate and make a way forward, to make these issues not come. We don't like strikes. I always say it. We don't like strikes. Doctors too are patients. We have family members. We have friends. And they will also need care. During the strikes, we also fall ill. We also need emergency care. So it affects us also. But the real responsibility lies on government to make sure that the system works.
Well, just to be clear, Dr. Ebong, again, my colleague asked you this, the other time, but let me just reiterate it. Just to be clear, how significantly will the health sector be impacted by a strike, when NARD members, go on strike? What's the population of members of NARD in any health facility, and how significantly would health care delivery be affected if NARD goes on strike?
In most tertiary centers, resident doctors comprise the bulk of the workforce of doctors. Nationwide, it's difficult to say in every center how many each center has. Just by me sitting down, we'll have to look at a list. But we comprise the majority of the workforce in most of the hospitals. So when there's a strike, the consultants are still working. It's difficult for them alone to carry out the daily job of a doctor. The patients will overwhelm them, and it becomes it's a difficult time for patients and also for doctors ourselves. We get to see our patients who we care for a lot in pains, and the manpower left is not enough to carry out these jobs, and it almost halts the system. The system is hurt badly, and patients usually suffer. Doctors also suffer too at this time. We see our patients suffering, and we also need care ourselves. So it's kind of a big issue for us also, and the system is almost grounded, and we don't like it. We pray that there is a speedy resolution to this, and that we move on with our lives and our work. We like to go to work. We like to work. We don't like strikes. But as I said earlier, sometimes when you try to negotiate and you try and nothing is being done, you are left with one option. And most times when we go on strike, that's when negotiations start in earnest. And that's when we get our demands met, sadly.
But the Lagos State government, for instance, is asking for a little more time from members of NRD in Lagos. I mean, owing to the actions that government has taken and actions that NRD has also taken. And so, again, we're going to ask you this question. What would make NARD right now to suspend the strike? Is it this invitation to a negotiation, or what exactly? Because sometimes I just wonder, who is supposed to initiate this conversation? Why do we always have to get to this bus stop of strike, so to speak? Who is supposed to, get ahead of this issue? It's definitely not the Minister of Health himself. There has to be someone who is supposed to do his job. Who is it that is supposed to do a job that is not doing it?
Well, first of all, as I said, we have had meetings upon meetings. We've made resolutions. We've made demands. As I said, on the
when you talk about these meetings,
March,
who do you meet with? Who are the people that you meet with? What set of people do you meet with when you are talking about these meetings upon meetings?
We meet with the permanent secretaries. We meet with the ministers. We meet with other government officials who may be representing the permanent secretaries or the ministers. We meet with government officials, even up to the ministers. So, like I said, on the 7th of March, we sent a letter to the minister saying that there was going to be crisis in the health sector if some issues were not sorted out. So we've sent letters, even up to the minister. These are the people we expect to wade into these matters and get subordinates or representatives to look at the issues and solve them.
He also made attempt to get
there was an attempt to, because there have been a number of issues around doctors, brain drain, and a number of other issues. I do know that some time ago, the federal government got concerned enough to have a conversation with doctors on what needs to be done. The conversation held at the presidential villa. Were resident doctors a part of that conversation?
I'm not sure about that. I can't answer for that because I wasn't there.
Okay.
I would expect that the resident doctors should have had a representative there.
Okay, but has there been anything being done? Because we also know that one of the issues that worries the management of hospitals nationwide is the brain drain that they're currently experiencing. Even while there was a lockdown and COVID-19 was was in full force in Nigeria, there were reports that airplanes were being brought into the country to take away our doctors, our medical personnel to other countries where they also had need for doctors. I do not know if there have been any steps taken to try and persuade our doctors to, I don't want to know what I was done on that patriotism, but at least to appeal to them to stay back and help out at home.
Yes, it's good to be patriotic. It's good to stay back and help at home. But what needs to be done when if you have to drive a car and it keeps breaking down and breaking down, someone offers you a car that works better, even if you're a driver and you have to drive this vehicle every day, and before you go 1 kilometer, it breaks down. You go another 1 kilometer, it breaks down. And someone offers you another car. There's the tendency for you to want to do your job. Just drive and drive smoothly on the road. So what needs to be done to curb the brain drain is for the health system to be made to work smoothly. Doctors go to work. They are supposed to be paid an allowance. They get paid it. The paltry 5,000 hazard allowance per month that a doctor receives, you upgrade it. Other countries like Ghana have done so. Our neighbors in other African countries have realized that, these doctors, the hazard they get is too little, let's do something about it. Those are the kind of things that make doctors want to stay back and help their country. But if every time you try to work, there's a strike, you try to do this, you don't get paid, somebody being owed 19 months salary, tell me how you would want to stay in the country when you're being owed 19 months of your salary. You've worked for those 19 months, and then you are not owed, and then you're not paid. And then someone tells you be patriotic. It's difficult. When you go to the markets, nobody tells you, doctor, because you're a doctor, take free yams. Because you're a doctor, take free rice. Nobody does that. You pay with cash. And if it's money you've worked for, it's your due. You deserve it. So these are the issues. We are not asking to maybe build 10 million new hospitals. The basic things, just pay people their salaries. The people on Give Me's platform all over the country, they're being paid percentages of salaries. Some of them are being owed. I don't think that's too much to do.
Well, let us hope that those who are concerned and those who are responsible to ensure that doctors do not have to go on strike before they're heard would have listened to you this morning and will be able to set straight some of the issues. We're hoping that we'll also be able to see further conversations being held on this particular matter to ensure that however brief the interruption, that this particular interruption will be brief because you say that the doctors have already proceeded on strike today. Is that correct?
We have.
Is it a warning? Is it for 2 weeks? Is it a week?
It's a resumption of our strike, which we suspended on the 10th.
So it's indefinite?
It's indefinite. It's a total and indefinite strike. We pray it will be as short as possible. We pray negotiations will yield results that we've been expecting since the 31st of March. And we hope that, because we want to work, a lot of doctors have called me saying, why are we on a strike? And I hope it doesn't last long. We hope government sorts us out. A lot of people have called me with their various concerns about the strike. We don't like strikes. We wish it ends fast. We wish government plays their own part. And we want to go back to work.
That's our desire as well. Dr. Kanimo Ebong, thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you too.
He's the president of the Association of Resident Doctors, National Hospital Abuja chapter, and also the senior registrar at the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at the National Hospital in Abuja. Sunrise Daily will continue in a moment to take a look at another issue. Please stay with us.
The All Progressives Congress APC holds its Ward Congress nationwide to choose party executives at that level. From Kano to Katsina and Jigawa states, all in the northwest region of the country. One noticeable feature of the Congress is that there appears to be a consensus arrangement.
We agreed on the principles of consensus throughout the 484 wards of Kano State. Ganduje ward, which is my ward, I'm happy to see that all the procedures has been followed, all necessary documents are available, all those who have been earmarked for consensus are around.
In the north-central states of Kwara and Niger, members of the party trooped out to partake in the poll, where again the consensus arrangement is the preferred option.
We are all members of the party, and we must make sacrifice. And the sacrifice is for us to bear whatever situation we find ourselves. You understand? So that from there we can start the next level. That is, start the next process. And the process is we all have to agree and to make sure that if you don't have anything today, be less assured that tomorrow you'll be able to have another even better than what you have not gotten.
Similar experience played out in Edo State, where the chairman of the party applauded the unity and support the APC enjoys in the state.
It's a replication of what is happening in the entire Edo State. That is the clear demonstration in 192 wards. You can go around yourself and it speaks for itself. APC, this is a party of unity, party of love, party of happiness. That's why you are seeing a mini carnival in the name of Congress.
Meanwhile, in Lagos State, the leadership of the party expresses confidence in the machinery put in place to conduct the Congress in 245 areas in the state. The chairman, World Congress Committee in the state, adds that a window to resolve concerns by members has been created by the party.
If there are any grievances, the party has provided that. From the 2nd to the 7th of August, you can have the opportunity to now write an appeal for whatever you think is not done right. But our concern is for us to work together as party members and have a peaceful, heat-free conduct of our congresses in Lagos State.
Very satisfied.
Members of the party in Ogun and Ekiti states are not left out as they equally participated in the poll. The governor of Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, and the chairman of the Congress in Ekiti State shed some light on the outcome of the exercise.
I'm very satisfied with the exercise. I have called around a few local governments. I understand that what has happened here is going on in other local governments, and the exercise has been thus very peaceful, very inclusive, and we didn't expect otherwise anyway. This is an APC state.
With the Congress over at the ward levels, the party now shifts its focus to the local government, where executive members will also be elected to run its affairs.
Yes, politics is where we're looking at next. And yes, you did see there, APC, that's the All Progressives Congress, conducted its ward congresses over the weekend, not without some contention. Some states were in particular contention because there you had power blocks which were going to be contesting against one another. Don't forget that just, I think on Thursday or Friday, on Thursday, there had been a Supreme Court ruling on the situation in on the candidacy of Governor Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State. And there were those who felt that that ruling given by the Supreme Court had implication for the ward congresses which were being held or which were going to be held over the weekend. One of the ministers in the President's cabinet, Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Mr. Festus Keyamo, SAN, had raised issue about the implications of that particular ruling, saying that for ward congresses to be conducted under the leadership of the current caretaker committee headed by Governor Mai Mala Buni of Yobe State could prove a problem for the APC moving ahead. But on Friday, they were swiftly countered by the legal advisor to the APC, Mr. Niyi Akintola, SAN, who said that the congresses should go ahead and that APC members should not be afraid, and that they should move ahead with courage, that no, the Supreme Court judgment was clear in its ruling, so there was no narrow miss there. Well, the PDP seems to be capitalizing on that. They have issued a statement saying that the APC congresses were null and void. What that has, is left to see how that is going to pan out. But now we've seen what has happened and what the fallouts are going to be. We have a few observers and those who have their issues with that party, with the congresses. We have Mr. Ezenwa Wagu, who is the Executive Director, Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, and is also the convener of Say No Campaign Nigeria. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you.
It's been a while.
Yeah, sure.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we also have with us Honorable Nda Aaron. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. He is the Director General, Save APC Now, and also former Senior Special Assistant on Mobilization to Governor Yahaya Bello. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start with you, Mr. Ezenwa, because for a number of people, they'll be asking why we should be interested. Oftentimes, political parties are they're very protective of their turf, and they want what happens in political parties to remain in political parties. So much so that sometimes when their members take them to court over issues, they suspend their members. So it would seem that somehow, as Nigerians, we have learned to mind our businesses and not take note of what is happening within political parties. Why do you think we should be interested in the ward congresses that took place over the weekend in the APC?
Well, I think we should be interested not just in the ward congresses. We should be interested in the vehicle for leadership recruitment in our country. And as far as we're concerned today, that would be the political parties. There is no other way through which you can emerge a leader in our democracy except through the political parties. So if we play shy and pretend that it's their internal matters, at the end of the day, we bear the consequences of their actions or inactions. So it's important that as enthusiasts, democratic enthusiasts, election enthusiasts, that we don't just show that kind of perfunctory interest. And so that's the reason why, whether it's PDP, APC, any other party, the truth is that we want to excite Nigerians to that point where you are following, even if you are not at the risk of being called a meddlesome interloper. But whatever it is, we have to be interested, we have to follow, and where they're not doing things right, we should be able to call them out and ensure that at the end of the day, they do what is right. Because the challenge that we have in our electoral process, a good chunk of it comes from a lack of internal party democracy. Whether you are talking about the litigious nature of pre-election matters that eventually carry on into even when people have been elected, they enjoy the prerequisites of office, and at the end of the day, the court says, hey, you are not the rightful owner, and then those things are not refunded. Those are public funds that are actually so at the end of the day, it's and political parties are actually public institutions. Even though they are founded by individuals. But at the end of the day, because of the critical role they play in democracy, we just have to be interested.
So from the interest that we I don't want to say we now, by we I mean journalists and CSOs have shown over the weekend. Were you concerned about the congresses that APC was going to conduct, given the Supreme Court ruling that came out just a few days before?
Well, I'm not particularly interested. I know that politicians, whether for or against, will always have something to. But the grain for me is to say, are you following the constitution of your political party? What kind of example? Because as a dominant position party, the expectation is that you lead by force of personal example. So if we are not seeing that example, if we feel a vagrant, of your party principles and guidelines, then there's a challenge with that. And for me, really, I've always worried about when interventions become bureaucracy. And what do I mean? It's not just in the political parties. Everywhere we get something, we say we want to intervene, solve a problem, and get out. And then at the end of the day, the intervention becomes bureaucracy. That's why you can have presidential committees that have run for 20 years. It's supposed to be a committee. Finish your work, wind up, and go. But whether it's caretaker, anything that is caretaker, I have a challenge with that. The APC must do what it has to do to quickly ensure that you have a substantive leadership for the political party in a way that guarantees that the principles, the guidelines, the constitution of the political party is followed. Those are my personal concerns and worries.
Well, I don't know what the concerns of Mr. Ndah Aaron will be, Honorable Ndah Aaron, because I'm wondering, the title of his group is Save APC Now. What is happening to the APC that it needs saving?
Actually, what is happening in our party is highly disturbing. And, there is no way you can bury the truth. The issues in the APC that has its root from the sacking of Adams Oshiomhole. That is what gave rise to this crisis. And if you look at it from that foundation, even the man that convened the NEC meeting, he was not in any way qualified to do such. But you want to save the party, you take a decision, you bring in a governor, then how would you be able to solve the problem? You just have to look at it. If Adam Oshiomhole is no longer on the seat, then who is the next person to take charge? That is where the issue is supposed to start from. But, for some political interests towards 2023, some people feel that maybe they have the other way they can do it. Okay? And we gave them the chance. And they have done it. But now, the Supreme Court have already shown us the red signal. So what are we going to do? You don't need to make a sweeping decision to continue with what you have already planned. You sit down. Put good brain together, good head together. Let them look into it legally. Then I'll take the best decision for the party. Then 3, let the party leaders come together, the founding fathers. Let them sit down and look at what is our first interest in forming this political party. We know 2023 is about consuming the party, but the fact is this: the interest of the founding fathers is about how to salvage the nation. So going to 2023 should not allow individual interests or personal interests supersede that of the vision and ideas of the party leaders. So if we are to save the party now, what we need to do is to sit down and go back to the first place, just as Senator Marafa said, where Oshiomhole was sacked. Then who is the next in line to Adams Oshiomhole? Then, if the person is there, bring the person up. Because if you cannot say somebody is a committee, and a committee, another committee that has a constitutional power to sack National Working this State Working Committee, dissolve down to the ward level. Okay, the Constitution says you cannot occupy 2 positions, executive position of the party and also of the government. Now, what do you need to do? Because some people are trying to argue for that he can do it, he is saved by the Supreme Court judgment. How is he safe? It's been declared illegal because all the congresses that will be done, down to the national convention, who will forward the name to the INEC? Who will sign it? Is this still Buni that will do that?
This Save APC Now group, did you just come up this weekend, just before this weekend was the World Congresses were about to go down this weekend?
You see, a lot of issues have, characterizing our party all this while. And we've been interacting among ourselves, we the youth, and try to see that this party is not just about today, it's about our future. Because we know how we labor to have brought this party on board. I was the state youth coordinator for Buhari Support Center, and I've also the Kogi West zonal coordinator for Yaya Bello support group for President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015, Kogi Youth Arise Group. So we have been, interacting among ourselves to see that this party become the future for us.
The specific question is about
but within this short period when the Supreme Court judgment came out, and we see counter argument for and this and that, so we now see that we need to come together as a youth. So this Save APC Now is a group that was just vetted immediately after the Supreme Court judgment to see that we can make an advocacy, we can also make persuasions and speak to the minds of our leaders to do the right thing.
So you have fears that the APC is in trouble and the congresses that were conducted over the weekend could spell doom for the party. Is that correct?
Of course, definitely to spell doom for the party, aside of the internal issues that we're already having.
I take it that you didn't participate in the congresses then, did you?
Well, I participated, but unfortunately in our state, we, the critical stakeholders, have been sidelined. And as I'm talking to you...
By who?
Of course, the leader of the state is no other person than the governor, because I was his former special advisor on state capital and urban development. Also, one-time SSC on mobilization. So, in the stakeholder meeting that were called, there was no formal appointees that were called. Then, two, there are also other critical stakeholders and the founding father, former senator, former House of Rep, former assembly member, even down to his former commissioner. They were not also called to the stakeholder meeting. Then, in their various local government, there is also crisis, even among the GYB family, that, as we call him in our state, that is Governor Yaya Bello. In Yagba East, is between the Commissioner of Finance and the SSG. In Ijumu, it is between the Algon chairman, the executive chairman of the local government, Honorable Tafik, versus Senator Smart Adeyemi, the assembly members, the commissioners, and other government appointees. They agree that it's going to be on consensus. But of course, some people have taken to their own directions, doing different way within them. Then in my own local government, they agree on consensus, but the local government party chairman move from ward to ward and make sure that the chairman, the secretary, the youth leader are all given to him. Then some certain faces are also being removed. So as I'm talking to you, in the state, it is like a three-way parallel congresses. The GYV versus the GYB, and also other critical stakeholders who have been shut out, either from the appointment or from even being carried along, have taken a step that this is a party that they founded in the state. And most of all, we have suffered in the opposition for so long.
Opposition? You're in the APC?
We suffered in the opposition in our state before the coming of the APC. So, but the APC came in now. We have not really benefited substantively as a party member. A lot of people have not benefited from the...
So somehow you are still in opposition?
Of course, we are still in opposition. So we now see that, now, we don't need to go back to another opposition again. What do we need to do? We need to find a way to save this party now, save APC now. That is the brain behind it.
Let me ask Mr. Wango, I do not know how this consensus versus, election, usually goes within political parties. That's it's usually a big bone of contention as to whether or not those who will emerge from the congresses will be elected via consensus or they will be elected via elections. We've seen, and oftentimes even the elections, there will be, conversations as to whether they will happen. There will be direct, primaries, or they will be indirect primaries. And we saw how that did a number of parties in in the 2019 elections, some parties, especially the APC, were not able to field candidates. Some of their results were upturned, and the opposing political party benefited as a result, excuse me, of this type of issues. I don't know what your thoughts are with the methods with which political parties decide that candidates should emerge, or positions be filled within their parties.
Maokwe, there are two issues that Honorable threw up, which I can use to answer your question. The first is the whole idea of concept of leader in the political party, founding leaders. That's an abnormality. It's an abnormality because the constitution of any political party has no position called leader. And there is no separation between party organization, party leadership, and the executive. The ambush, if you like, of the party structures by these so-called leaders, whether it's at the top or at the lower level, is part of the confusion that you have currently. So, the governors are emperors, not just in the political parties where they are. There is already a concession. So what do? Many of the people who contested, who are supposed to, the other word is giving. You say give. It's a contest. It should be a contest. Before you get to a consensus, there are contesting parties. Those contesting parties are brought together, and then there's a resolution. And that resolution is called consensus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So so there is complete absence of contest. Many of the people who eventually didn't buy these forms by themselves, okay, in many situations we have seen these governors even buy forms for House of Assembly, House of Rep, and decide to give. So when you take away contests, the competitive nature of politics, whether it is in the primary, in the political parties, or outside of it, is completely lost. So the challenge that you are having is that you have exalted the feelings of leaders above the constitution. These parties have constitution. So when you allow the legal play, if you have 1,000 lawyers, they have 1,000 opinion.
Yeah, but there are those who will say that not everything. I mean, even in a country, even in, I don't want to use the example of churches, but sometimes, there are traditions, things that are not clearly spelt out. Yes, there is a constitution that guides everybody.
If you have an abnormality, if you have a contention, if you have issues that are contentious, you don't rely on tradition.
When you talk about the fact that there is no position of a leader spelled out in any party's constitution.
No, so we have to be very clear how that affects the kind of thing that we're currently seeing. Because when you venerate the feelings, emotions, and confection your activities around how people feel, then you take away the guiding principle, which is your constitution. So if your feelings is not in consonance with the guiding principles of our association, because we are coming together as an association, the challenge is that these parties don't even have members. Jokes, I mean, in the sense in which how people are members of a political party. Pay your dues, you can then, insist on your right as a member of a political party. But most of the time, what it is, that the direct, what you see now as the Congress is a festival. So there is no record, there is no ticking, there is nobody. So if you say you are APC member, you are APC member. Okay.
But they had a registration drive not so long ago.
That is going on. So they say 27 members. But I can tell you, practically speaking, that at the end of the day, some people who you see today in this Congress, you also see them in the Congress of another political party tomorrow. So the challenge is that we do not have strong political parties in the sense in which it is known. So you have you have elevated political party to taking the ownership away from people and surrendered it to these leaders that you talk about. And what is curious for me is whether it's Buni, whether these issues that are being challenged today are not new. It didn't take, I mean, the guy has been in that position for close to a year or more than a year. And so all the hula baloo coming now is a contest of power blocks. Okay, so throwing in everything they have into the issues, but we must be able to take a different stance and look at the issues from the point of the laws that will govern them, the laws that they have agreed for themselves that this is on the basis on which we are going to, congregate. And so if there's a violation of that, the thing to do is not to begin to talk about tradition, and is to say go back to your but like I said, if you have an intervention, if you solve that problem, get out and organize a proper substantive leadership for the political party.
We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll allow Honorable Aaron intervene in the matter. Please stay with us. We're examining the fallout from the World Congresses of the All Progressives Congress that happened over the weekend, and we still have with us in the studio Honorable Nda Aaron, who is the Director General of the Save APC Now Group, and also Mr. Ezenwa Wago, who is the Executive Director, Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa. He's also the convener of Say No Campaign Nigeria. So let me quickly come to you, Honorable Aaron. You wanted to quickly intervene on what Mr. Ezenwa had to say about congresses and usually what they mean for party politics in Nigeria.
Yeah, he was talking about, leaders and trying to really take them out of the main issues in contest. The fact is this: when you have a political crisis, as a political party or a political group, all you need to do is applying a political solution. So you don't leave your fate in the hand of a judge or some legal team to decide it for you. So that is why I say that there is a need for the founding father to come together, the likes of President Muhammadu Buhari, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and some leaders from the legacy side.
Well, you heard him say, I'm sure that we all understood what you meant by the founding fathers.
Sorry, the fact is this: a political party has a two identity, the natural person and the artificial person. So these both must go hand in hand. So now when there is issue, it is a human being, it is the conduct of human being that led to this crisis.
Now, when he says that, there is no role, there's no role spelled out for a leader in your party constitution, do you agree with him in that?
No, the rules are already spelled out, but people are only trying to manipulate the constitution of the party for their own personal interest. But in this situation, it is very dangerous for anybody to manipulate the looming danger in the APC. That is why we say Save APC Now. Come together. We have to look at the remote cost. Then when we look at the remote cost, we'll now look at the immediate cost. Then we will be able to make quantitative time series analysis from the past to the present and to the future, and be able to take a decision that will put the party at a safe side as we move into 2023.
How did the registration in your party go? Because, we do know that there were issues of contention arising from the re-registration of party members when that registration process was going on.
Just like I earlier said, for some individual political interest, if not, there wasn't any need for such even registration, because the issue that arose from the sacking of Adams Oshomole wasn't about the registration issue. It is about the leadership of the National Working Committee. And all we need to do is just to get it right. But because politicians want to buy time and they want to manipulate some certain processes and to have the structures for themselves, so they need to bring in something on the table and to be window dressing around. So that is all what the registration is all about. But regardless.
But you participated in that?
Of course, you have to do it. If you're a party member and they have taken that decision, you just have to stand, because in this politics, one meeting you miss can cost you everything you have worked for. So if they take one step, if you know the step is not good, but one way or the other, you just have to put the step there with them. So that is what the politics is all about.
Let's go to Lagos now. I'm sure that Ayo has something for us. Ayo.
Well, yes. First, I would have loved to ask questions of Honorable Aaron, but we'll come to that one. Right now, you know, we talked about the fact that the NERD strike was to begin. We had a doctor talk to us about that this morning. They said we'll begin 8 a.m. today. Well, it's 34 minutes into that strike as at this moment, and our Channels TV correspondent in Imo State, Eyitope Kutei, is ready. He is at the Federal Medical Center, Owerri. Eyitope, how far so far? Can you report or confirm that the strike has indeed started, as the doctors say?
Good morning. I'm right here at the Federal Medical Center here in Owerri, the Imo State capital. And right behind me is the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors Lounge, where the resident doctors normally converge every day. And as you can see behind me, it's empty. I've spoken to some of the resident doctors, especially the chairman here in Imo State, Jude Ogu, and he says they are in line with the directive of the National Executive Council to down tools till further notice. They've complied, and I've gone around the hospital this morning. Some patients, you can see in front of me right now, there's a lounge there where some patients are sitting, and the doctor says the only consultant doctors will be responding to the patients right there, but for them, they're down tools till further notice, in line with the directive of the National Executive Council.
Well, that's a very, very touching and dangerous one, Eyitope. I'm just wondering what the take of the government would be on this case right now. How is the state government, if you have any information at all, reacting to this development?
Okay, yeah, for now, I've not really gotten anything from the state government in relation to this new development. But before now, you know, it's been there's been a series of meetings between the state government and the National Association of Resident Doctors in Imo State, and particularly over their welfare. And I can't authoritatively say if there's any latest meeting between both parties, but as these developments unfolds, we'll get on that story too.
Well, certainly we will. And you just mentioned the fact that patients are already in dire straits, so to speak. What do you expect might happen today as the strike begins, especially in terms of healthcare delivery to patients, both inpatients and outpatients?
Okay, you know, definitely in all health institutions where you have resident doctors, most times they have the highest number of members, and they attend to patients even more than most of these consultants. So it's gonna be because right now I have over, if I'm not too, I have over 30 patients seated around there, and normally if they are resident doctors, you know, it will make it easier for the patients to get treatment and quality healthcare. But for now, since these resident doctors are not working today, then the job, the task for the consultant doctors will be much more than before. So, but we'll still go ahead to speak to the management of the Federal Medical Center, Owerri, to see what and how they are going to handle this case today.
Well, it definitely is something very, very troubling, especially as we hear that cases of COVID-19, especially the third strain, Delta strain, is getting worse by the day. We can only imagine how people are taking this on board. And of course, you know, all those other infectious diseases such as cholera and all of that. Are there spikes in the state that could worsen as a result of this strike?
I didn't get that. Can you take that again?
I said, are there spikes in cases of infectious diseases that, would get worse as a result of this strike?
Yeah, definitely. The third wave of the COVID-19 is here, and the task force on one hand is trying to put all modalities in place and with the state government to ensure that this third wave is being handled just like it did in the second wave. And definitely with the strike, it's going to add more issues around, because when these resident doctors are not on ground to attend to cases like this, then it's going to be more problematic for the healthcare system here in Imo State.
Well, Itokwe, we trust that you please stay safe yourself, and especially being that you are reporting from a health facility now, and with the strike and all, just please do stay safe. Thank you very much for your reporting, and we trust we'll get more updates as events unfold. Well, that's Itokwe Kute, Channels TV correspondent in Imo State. Hopefully we'll be able to take on one or two others before the end of this program. But let me ask, back to the previous conversation, Honorable Nda, I'm just wondering, when you said the other time in response to a question mark was through at you said your group, which is in the ruling party in the state, are in opposition in the state, and that you have not benefited enough from the ruling party. I'm just wondering, what kind of benefits are you expecting that you're not getting?
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Please go ahead if you can hear me.
Yeah. Is it number one? The benefits in politics is not in heaven, is here on earth. Because we are seeing those who are there who are benefiting. So a lot of people suffer and labored to have brought this APC to be, most especially in our state. For 13 years, we were under the PDP rule. And we were hoping and laboring, patiently waiting that when we eventually will come to the power, we will smile. But today I can tell you that we are not smiling. Some of us have served in government. We don't have something tangible to show for it. Others who even labor, they are not even lucky like us to have even come close to have served and in the government. So, and a lot of them are not really in good health. Some have even died. Some even died about 3 days ago. So for how long are we going to continue like this? I think we want the voice of reasoning to sign into their mind.
Just 1 second, Honorable Aaron. The question I'm asking is, what specific kinds of benefit are you talking about?
I am talking about political benefit, which is well understood by all politicians. So maybe for you as a media person, you may not understand. But we as a politicians, we understand what is political benefit. And again, another side of it, a lot of the funding members are not being carried along.
Just a second, Honorable Aaron. There is also a lot of talk about so many people wanting to get into politics and knowing how to contribute their quota to service of fatherland. So that's why I'm asking, maybe if it is, because I'm wondering, I thought that, dividends of democracy should go around to everybody, not just to the politicians. So that's why I'm asking if you would be specific, if you wish to be specific, exactly what kind of benefits are you talking about, given that dividends of democracy is supposed to go around? Would you say that these benefits also include dividends of democracy to all the people, or you're talking about something exclusively for the politicians?
Just like you said, the dividends of democracy is supposed to go around. And if you look at it, you take it in a two traffic. One, the generality of the people, but two, the party member. Because the party member risked their life. They risked their life, stood for the party, canvassed, campaigned for the candidates, spend their money as well. Nobody is trying to say that you want to get something illegal from the government. but there are something legal from the government that you can get. There are patronages you can get from the government. Some of us are business people. Some of us, we have company that run businesses. But, there is no patronage. Few people are only benefiting from the system. And this is not only in Kogi State, it's also happening at the national level. And we look at it that this crisis that is engulfing the party, if we do not speak out to save APC now, then when our own time will come. So it is in view of this that we are making this advocacy, we are making this cry. We know Buni have done a lot for us in the party within this short period of his time. But, the right thing needs to be done. The future of the party is bigger than anybody. The party is an artificial body, and the party must also outlive the Mr. President. You could also be hearing different versions of prophet of doom. This one say APC will crash. This one say APC will not live before the Buhari. But the fact is this, if we don't do the right thing, this prophecy might come to pass. So on the issue of the benefit, just as you know that dividends of democracy go around to the people, it also have another side that come to the politicians, because it is the politicians that risk their life to stand for the candidates of the party, work for the party, spend their money for the party. So, and most politicians you see, they have one area or the other that they can function, they can do business with the government, either on the capacity of being appointed or on the capacity of being patronized. So, and the major challenge and the cry of most especially Nigerian youth, they have not been rewarded. They have not been recognized adequately within the party which they labor and enthrone or bettered. So if you check, one of the chunk groups of the people that brought President Muhammadu Buhari to power are the youths. But today, if you look around, you hardly see the youth in any prominent places. And
let me quickly ask Mr. Ezenwa what he makes of your expectation. If these are the expectations that politicians have, and oftentimes, this is the reality, how are political parties expected to manage these expectations, at the same time manage expectations of the people who elected them into office?
Well, I think there is the first leg of the conversation, which we didn't completely trash, the issue about leaders. The constitution of political parties have board of trustees. So it is still within the confine of the political parties to take different hierarchy. So what happens is that when you subvert the law and order regime within the political party, you now want extraneous influences to help you resolve the issue. The board of trustees is where you find those kind of people that he's talking about. And so if you have issues with the National Working Committee and the NEC, the National Executive Council, which is the highest organ of the political party, you can go to the board of trustees. The board of trustees can then give you the powers to constitute some of those issues that you are talking about without going to extraneous issues. Now, the challenge and the burden of our governance system is that it is predicated on cronyism and patronage, and that itself is the big challenge. Okay, people. Yes, if you the idea of contributing.
Mr. Ezenwa, I'm going to let you expatiate on your point when we come back from this break. We really need to take this break. Well, just before we went on that break, Mr. Ezenwa was about to shed some light on the challenge we have with political parties.
So I was talking about cronyism and patronage, and how to balance that with merits. That's the challenge of governance. That's the challenge of leadership. So when you have a warped sense of entitlement, the involvement in politics is not an investment. It's like your colleague from Lagos was saying. It's about also service. It's about service. If you have a second address, if you have other things that you do, you understand, you moderate those expectations and then place it on deliverables for public good. What does that mean?
You say it's not an investment. Is it not an investment, or it should not be an investment?
It is not. If once you have the mentality that is an investment, that's why people go to sell their houses.
When you hear banks funding, politicians.
No, these are myths. So this is a reason why people steal money in public office. How much is the real appurtenances of this office? What does it come to? The real official as SA special advisor, what is your salary? Okay, but so if the reason you are invested, you've been made SA and you are paid that salary. Okay, that's not people sell their houses. People, like you said, the banks invest, the rise of negative godfatherism. All of those things are part of the challenge that you are seeing, because people now see it that, okay, it's put in this and get this. That expectation needs to be cleared, that if we continue like that, the challenge that we have is that until we understand that if you benefit in the sense in which I understand it from what I'm hearing here now, if you benefit and have a castle, okay, but the hospital within your community cannot serve the general public, and then when you have allergies, you travel out of the country, the majority of the people who live within that environment cannot access good medical care. It becomes a challenge for you. If we have bad roads, okay, even if you drive the best of the cars that you can think about, once you can't drive on those roads, the public good is not served. So the balance is what I'm talking about, that we have placed a lot of emphasis on this entitlement that most politicians have, and that's the reason they become very desperate. That's the reason it becomes a do or die thing. If it is seen from the prism in which prism of service, prism of engagement, we are likely going to see less crisis than we're seeing.
I'm going to ask you to have 30 seconds to quickly wrap this up. Do you agree with his point, and if that is the situation, how do you think we can come around it?
I don't really agree with the situation. With his submission in total, because even the constitutions recognize the competitive nature of running a political party. So, and you also need to fund such a political party. And it is people who brought out their own personal resources to invest in the political party. If you listen to...
He says it should not be an investment.
Well, that is okay. How are you going to run it? How are you going to run it?
It should not be seen as an investment.
It is not being an investment, rather. But the issue is that there is something you need to contribute to make it work. So it is not about investment per se, but it's about contribution. For the success, you need a structure, you need a vehicle, you need mobilization, you need publicity. How do you get it? There is no any allocations from the government to a political party to run the day-to-day businesses of the political party. So in such a way, people make personal contribution to run the party. And if they do that, when the success comes, of course, even the constitutions know that you become a president, you become a governor, you become a chairman. The constitutions expressly spelled out what you earn. So it is not a charity organization.
Well, I know that this conversation will go on because the World Congresses have just been concluded. We haven't heard the last of them. And I know that this conversation is something that will be very interesting should be of interest to majority of Nigerians. Let us see what eventually comes of it. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. Honorable Unda Aaron, he's the Director General of Save APC Now, and also former Senior Special Assistant on Mobilization to Governor Yahaya Bello. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Early. And Mr. Ezeman Wagu is the Executive Director, Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, and also the convener of Say No Campaign Nigeria. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Early as well.
Thank you very much. We want our leaders to do the right thing.
I'm sorry we're totally out of time. Thank you so much. Well, we have a few emails now. This is from Frank Egajiwe, who's writing on the APC World Congresses. He says, APC has been given unambiguous expo. I want to think as the That's the context in which he's using that word now. By the split judgment of the Apex Court and the party decision to conduct the World Congresses in the face of the obvious red alert may bring the entire structure of the party down. He says it is undebatable that Section 183 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, forbids Governor Mai Mala Buni from holding or performing the executive functions of the ruling party, APC. Those arguing for his retention are either ignorant of the letters of that section of the Constitution or they are blinded with personal interest. We shall see who's right at the end. Oh, he believes that this might go to court. Well, let us see what happens. Ayo.
Yes, Chris Enakena is next. Professor Chris Enakena says about the resident doctor strike, it's preposterous that medical doctors are being owed their basic allowances while politicians are drawing millions daily from the Federation accounts. Is this apocryphal from the side of government? You can sense the insincerity from their part. Politicians should cut the number of their aides if we're constrained financially to fund this essential sector. 19 months without pay is very grave. Ministry of Health and Labor must work hand in hand to curtail this perennial strike. It doesn't have to be this way. Government must be sincere and committed to sort out this financial impasse once and for all. Doctors, NARD, must have concrete commitments from the side of government to suspend the strike decisively to avoid further strike.
And Abadero Oluwasomi is talking about resident doctor strike. He says, to me, what we're seeing is an evidence of a failed system of government. The doctors have no option than to go on strike to get the government to do the needful. I'm not advocating for continuous strikes every now and then. Let our government get things done before things get worse. Moshinawa Kingsley, we also see your Mill and Henry and Chukuma Njoko. Also, we also see your mail as well on food security. Well, thank you so much for interventions and your contributions to the program this morning, this beautiful Monday morning. Thank you for waking up with us here on Channels Television. We certainly will keep you updated with regards to how things unfold with the developing doctor strike situation. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokbe Ogunyuso.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a wonderful day and keep safe.